Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to another Roth IAMS webinar. I'm just going to give a couple of minutes to let some more people join in, but we'll probably get started about 2 or 3 minutes after noon. Great. I think we are all good to get started. Welcome to another Roth IAMS webinar. Thank you for joining us today. We've got a great presentation for you on being a better leader by leveraging cooperative procurement. We actually have a guest host today, which is wonderful. We've had Tammy on before, and we're very happy to have her back again. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we jump into it. So my name is Alicia McLean. I'm our National Sales Director, if you haven't met me before. If you have any questions during the presentation, just pop them into the chat. We do have a Q&A session at the end, and we will circle back to any questions that are brought up during the presentation. We do have a feedback survey at the end of the presentation. We do ask that you stick around and just take the 1 to 2 minutes to fill it out. It just helps us to make sure that we're bringing you the content that is relevant to you and helpful for you. And a copy of the slide deck and the recording will be circulated to everyone who signed up for the webinar, so no need to take notes. And with that, I will jump into some introductions. So we have Bill Roth, who I'm sure many of you have seen and met before, whether on a webinar or at many of the conferences that Roth IAMS attends. He is our president and CEO of Roth IAMS. He's also the co-founder of SLAM Technologies, and he's been working in the public sector for over 30 years, helping institutions across North America with all aspects of their facility and infrastructure asset management. He's an active member of various industry associations like APA, NASPA, and NCPP. And then our co-host today is Tammy Rhymes. She's the Executive Director of National Cooperative Procurement Partners. She's really focused on the educational content, legislative advocacy, and cooperative procurement support. She's, in a past role, served as the purchasing agent for the City of San Diego, and she has a background in sales and marketing. So she brings diverse experience from both the corporate side of things, the government side of things, and entrepreneurial sectors. Thank you for joining us today, Tammy. And with that, I'll hand it off to Bill.
Thanks a lot, Alicia, and thank you for calling me a co-host, because really Tammy's the star of the show today. We're happy to have her here, and really excited for her to share her knowledge on cooperative procurement. And before we dive in, I just wanted to do a little bit of an introduction for folks that may not know NCPP, or the National Cooperative Procurement Partners Association. This is essentially the industry association for cooperative procurement. And the association and Tammy and her role support the members, which are over 360 organizations, both on the public sector side as well as strategic partners, that is in place to support and promote and expand the reach of cooperative procurement. And as an organization that has a number of cooperative procurement contracts, we're very, very happy to have Tammy and her team out there helping to sell the idea of cooperative procurement, so that if and as we are interacting with customers that are able to tap into these contracts, that the awareness is there, that the issues and questions are all answered. And that's really what NCPP is all about: educational outreach, legislative advocacy, and collaboration amongst the sector. So Tammy, thank you so much for being here. It's great to have you with us once again, and I'm going to get out of the way and let you take over.
Thanks, Bill. I appreciate it. And actually, as part of this presentation, thanks to everybody for being here today. I'm going to actually kind of wear two hats. One is my NCPP Executive Director, telling you a little bit about the landscape of cooperative procurement. But I really want to tie that into leadership for today's conversation, because I worked in government for 26 years, all with the city of San Diego, but I worked in many different departments, from the water department to the sewer department, financial management, the city clerk's office, working with our mayor's office, and then finally ended my career for the last 5 years as the purchasing agent for the 9th largest city in the nation. So I feel like I have a lot of wide-ranging government experience, even though I just work for one municipality, and I hope to bring some of that forward. So when we're talking about the concept of leadership today, I'm not talking about a title or your position or where you fall within the org chart. It's not about that at all. As a leader, we influence others all the time, both in our professional and personal lives. So I really want to talk about the leadership role that you serve in your entity and how we can work cooperative procurement in to help with that. So next slide, please. So there was a survey done by Deltec. They do a lot of information and survey work, both on the supplier side of the procurement table as well as the government side. And here were the top challenges they found in procurement. And many of us can shake our head, yes, and we already know about these challenges, but budget and resource issues is a huge one. And actually this year, it's going to become more into play. Many of you are working off a fiscal year that may start on July 1st. So right now you're in your last month of the last fiscal year. And so it's spend, clean up your budget, and then get your new budget for next year. Well, what we're seeing across the nation is there's a lot of constraints with budgets right now. People are starting to shorten down what they're trying to purchase. In fact, I was watching the news this morning. I live in Colorado, and Denver just announced the county of Denver is going to have a $200 million deficit. They haven't even started the fiscal year yet, and they're already in the red. So budget and resource is a big one for everyone. The second one, and this shouldn't be surprising, is the cumbersome bureaucratic processes. Just because the public thinks government is slow, we also think government can be slow, but we have all these rules and regulations we have to follow. And by gosh, nobody wants to get in the paper. Then staffing limitations. I heard an interesting stat from an economist last week during a presentation. He was saying that 10,000 baby boomers a week are retiring in the U.S. 10,000 folks are leaving the workforce, in addition to all the layoffs and everything else that's happening. So as positions are being emptied out in government teams, they're not allowing you to finish them to fill them, or they're saying, hey, since that position is empty, let's just cut it out of the budget. We don't need it anymore. And you never get a person, but the work continues. Getting participation from vendors and suppliers is becoming more difficult, particularly if your purchase isn't a big one. It's a one and done. And let me give you an example. This was something I learned after I left procurement. I wish I had known then. A lot of companies, when they're responding to individual bids and RFPs, it can cost them thousands of dollars of their resources and time to respond. So let's say you're an entity that has a $5,000 commodity that you want me to bid on. Another one might have a $50,000 comprehensive package, and then a third might have $500,000 over the next 5-year contract. If I'm a supplier, I'm going for that $500,000. I may dabble with the $50K, but that $5,000 person, it's a no bid situation for me, because it would cost me more to respond to their bid than the actual sale of the item. I would make no money on that. So getting participation, vendors and suppliers are getting more selective on where they want to spend their time and effort. We always have meeting regulatory requirements, and they're changing quite a bit. We're also having the tariffs go up, go down, go sideways, and everyone's having to react to that on the supplier and the buying side. And then here's one that I always got frustrated by: the pre-bid research and planning. Let's say we have a problem or an issue my city needs to address. They don't say, Tammy, we're going to give you 48 hours of free time. Don't worry about your emails and phone calls. You just go research the heck out of that. No, we're researching in between our meetings and phone calls. So we really don't have a lot of planning time. And then the social goals get plucked on top of everything else. So our mission is save money, be sustainable, do minority and women-owned business subcontracting, do living wage. There's all these other social goals that are put on top of procurement. So that, in a nutshell, makes this one of the most hardest, funnest jobs I ever had. Next slide, please. So where can cooperative procurement help? And I'm going to give you some ideas and some background knowledge on here just to kind of set the stage. But let me explain what cooperative procurement is for those that are new to this. So there's two concepts. The first is if a group of entities go out together on a bid or RFP. So I did that for the city on a fuel contract. I reached out to the county and all of the other municipalities around me and said, hey, I'm going out with an RFP for fuel. Why don't we add all of our use in there and it'll be advantageous pricing for all? So that's what we did. That's not the co-op that I'm talking about. The second meeting is the one I'm talking about. It's where an entity or a government conducts the solicitation process the same as any entity would do, go out to bid, do the evaluation, do the contract award, negotiation, all of that. And now they have this swaddling baby. It's called an awarded contract, and they put language in there that other entities can use. That's what we're talking about today. Next slide, please. So while procurement gets trained on this a lot, we have a lot of folks in the audience who aren't necessarily with procurement, trained in procurement, but they still need to buy a lot of stuff for their operational needs. So here, according to Deltec, are the 4 compelling reasons why anyone would want to buy off a cooperative contract. So the first is to save time. I just talked about somebody did the solicitation process on your behalf. So that work that takes weeks and months to conduct has already been done for you. Now the contract is ready to go. Second, saving money. And what I mean by this is when a supplier is responding to a cooperative contract, they know this contract is going to be used by multiple entities across a region or a nation. As a result, they truly sharpen their pencils and come in with not only advantageous pricing, but possibly added value services like consulting, free delivery, warranties, all kind of extra things that are in that package. Because I just mentioned how much time and effort it takes them to respond to every single bid and RFP. If they put all their eggs in this basket, it's a contract that can be used for many. Third is proven solutions, and this is perfect when you really want to work with a specific company, and it happens all the time. I might have my fire chief come in and say, you know, Tammy, these are the turnout jackets that we want. We don't want to shop around. We don't want to go out to bid. These are the turnout jackets. I might have my IT folks come and say, we want to standardize on Dell computers and HP printers. My fleet director now comes and says, Tammy, we only want Ford F-150 trucks for our utility vehicles. So me as a purchasing director, I'm kind of stuck because I'm supposed to put stuff out on the street. I'm supposed to encourage competition. Well, this is where co-ops come in mind, because remember, a competition was held, but now I have an awarded contract. So I can reach out to the specific supplier. So let's say in this example, you've got Roth IAMS here, and you want to do business with them. Instead of going out to bid and crossing your fingers, hoping that they're going to win the bid, approach your favorite supplier and say, hey, do you have a cooperative contract? Could I just piggyback on that so I can get to you? And then finally, again, at the end of the fiscal year, you don't have time to go out to bid. And local governments have to stay within budget, but we also want to spend every dollar of our budget at the end of the fiscal year. So in procurement, we know who has $50,000 and who has $5 left at the end of the year because everybody wants to spend it. And this is a way for you to quickly conclude your fiscal year, or if an upcoming emergency happens where you need to quickly garner stuff, commodities, services, construction, without having to go out to bid. So again, these are the 4 main reasons why you'd want to go the cooperative route. Next slide, please. So who is using co-ops? This study was done in 2023 as the nation was coming out of the pandemic. And these are who's buying K through 12 special districts, school districts, ISDs, they're the #1 user. But what's interesting, look at that second bar. States even see the value of using cooperative contracts. As big as a state is, and as much purchasing power as they have, they still use cooperative contracts because they just don't have enough staff to put everything out to bid. So big states use them. And so there's no reason why anybody could say, well, I have my own purchasing power and I probably could get a better price on my own. You may, but we're going to talk about your time as well. The one area that's fastly growing is higher ed. So even though that bar looks pretty small there, higher ed is coming up to speed as well. Next slide, please. So what are they buying? So here's the main categories, and 79% of the purchases actually fall into 4 categories. You have construction and equipment, you have operations and maintenance, which is a huge category. That could be janitorial supplies, landscaping maintenance, HVAC. That's a big bucket right there. Then you have technology, telecom, and transportation and vehicles. It's fast growing on all the different categories that are available through co-ops. So many of you may be familiar with cooperatives. Maybe you used it in the past. And for commodities, most people feel very safe and okay with that. But the fastest growing areas now are services, such as consulting services, installation services, where suppliers package products with their consulting services and expertise, or straight out construction services, repairing roofs, repaving sidewalks, redoing basketball courts in a high school. All those kind of things can now be done through co-ops. Next slide, please. So I'm pulling back the curtain a little bit because we have mostly public government entities on here, but I want to show you the other side of the story, the supplier side. So why would suppliers even go after a cooperative contract? Again, this is data from Deltek, but what they show is where does the revenue come from for companies who sell to government? Well, almost 34% comes through your regular bids and RFPs. Then you've got almost 20% just through sole source, informal purchasing. Maybe it's under a certain threshold, 3 quotes and you can buy. Statewide contracts are a big one. But look at the run in red, cooperative procurement, 11.3%. That could be a big portion of your government revenue. And that's why a lot of companies are putting more resources. They're putting their cooperative contracts as part of all their sales conversations. I feel like this number is on the low end. Again, this is supposed to be an average, but in talking to certain companies out there, I asked them the question, so you've got cooperative contracts. What do you estimate your percentage of government revenue comes from cooperatives? And I've heard 30%. 40%. I even heard one public safety company that was just focused on police and fire, 90% of their sales come through their cooperative contracts. So suppliers see this as a huge benefit and they are leveraging it wherever they can. Next slide,
Tammy,
please.
I would say from our perspective, it's north of 40% typically over the last couple of years. So it's a huge percentage, and that's of our total revenue, not just of our government revenue.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. Kudos to you guys. Next slide, please. So I want to share a little data with you, and this is fairly recent. NCPP actually took the lead on an RFP tracking project. And how it came about was I present across the country, both in Canada and the US. I present to public procurement government folks and supplier audiences. And invariably, there's always that one person in the audience that raises their hand and says, so how much does it cost on average to conduct your own bid or RFP process? And believe it or not, the answer wasn't out there. I went to NASPO, I went to NIGP, I went to NAEP, I went to some of the Canadian associations, and no one had a succinct industry-wide number. Now, there were individual entities who might have tracked their own costs, but it wasn't something we could just tout to the world and say, this is how much it costs. Well, NCPP decided to take the proverbial bull by the horns and take on this project. So we reached out across the nation, only the US for this first part. We're going to do a Canadian part in next year. We're planning to do that. And we asked U.S. entities, and we didn't care if they were city, county, school districts, colleges, and said, we want you to choose your next upcoming bid or RFP, and we want you to track all the personnel costs, any advertising costs, any hard costs or soft related to this procurement. And I'm going to show you some of the results today. Next slide, please. So as the spreadsheets came in, we actually turned them over to the University of Georgia, a doctorate program there, analyze the data, because we wanted to have a little bit of arm length and have academia as part of this. And what we found is when we broke down the different steps of an average procurement process, the one step didn't matter what they tracked, whether it was a complex or non-complex entity or procurement. Number one step, and you guys probably could shake your heads on this, the development of the scope of work and specifications. It takes forever to do that. And I'm talking from my own experience. Here's what generally happens. Either I get a blank piece of paper from the department saying, you write the specs, you can figure it out. And I'm like, this is a fire truck. You got to tell me what you need on this fire truck. Or they'll cut and paste a page right out of a manufacturer's book and tell me, okay, just black out where it says John Deere, but here's our specifications. Well, I think if I put that out on the street, Kubota, Toro, and some Caterpillar might have issues with me advertising the specs of John Deere. So it's a lot of back and forth between the departments. So this was an interesting sort of eye-opening moment for me in looking at this. And you sitting out there might think, oh, shoot, that's the same for us. So two things could solve this. One, possibility of using AI to help with your scope development. Or two, go the cooperative route and you don't even have to do that step. So next slide, please. So what we found is we had to actually divide the projects into two parts because the University of Georgia came back and said, look, Tammy, this runs the gamut. We have a simple no bid rebid where very little time was spent, all the way to a huge City of Miami radio system for their entire public safety unit. So it was all over the place. So we did complex and non-complex. Non-complex is a simple commodity purchase. It's a one and done. I need a lawnmower. I need office supplies. It costs your time, not only procurement, subject matter experts from the department, legal counsel, risk management. Maybe you have to take it to a board, city council. For a non-complex project, you can tack on average, another $1,600 on top. That's your time. Now, this is just an average. For more complex, a minimum of $17,000 on top. So whatever you're buying, make sure you add these dollars on top because your time is money. Now, these were determined by salaries that we pulled from different industries for procurement, for legal counsel, for an engineer for a city. So we looked across the gamut of anybody who could touch an RFP and what an average salary was across the nation. Because someone from California is going to get paid very differently from somebody from South Carolina. So we had to have apples and apples. But here's what I want you to do. Look at these numbers and think, every time I purchase something, I need to start adding these values on top of that. And these are just salaries. These aren't your fully loaded benefit packages. So it's on the low side. Next slide, please. For you as a tool, there's also a free calculator. So taking the report, we worked with Pavilion, and it's available on the NCPP website or the Pavilion website. Or let's say you have an expiring contract, or maybe you have a brand new need for your organization, and you're right at the cusp of the decision-making process. Do we go out to bid, or do we go the cooperative route? Well, using the cost to procure calculator, you simply put in, it's about 5 fields. You put in what you're buying, what the budget is, maybe what your particular salary is if you want it really into your entity. And then there's a couple other questions, whether you have to go to a board or council for approval. You push submit, and within seconds it pops up. And it says, if you go the cooperative route, it's going to cost you this, the budget, plus your time. If you go the bid route, here's the item, here's your time. And it's really easy to spell it out. It's going to be more expensive for you to go out to bid. It's also printable. So if you have to go before your board or city council, and there's always that one person who raises their hand and says, why didn't we go out to bid for this? Okay, they may not have a Southern accent, but they do ask that question. You can clearly pop that up and say, do you realize every time we go out to bid, you have to add this much more money, personnel time on top of it? It's just an idea. And if you feel so inclined and want to track your own solicitation just to know your own costs, the spreadsheet is also available. You fill it out during the process, and we will do the calculations and turn it around back to you. So again, these are free tools that are available to you. Next slide, please. So other ways that cooperative contracting can help. So I just wanted to list just a few ways. So when I was at the city of San Diego, we had one of the most horrendous fires, the Witch Creek fires, that came during my tenure. The fires raged for 17 days. We had, and anybody who's familiar with San Diego, all major freeways, north and east, were closed. And the only way to go was the ocean, the Pacific Ocean, or Mexico down south. So we were pretty much stuck within the city. So I was also in charge of public, any kind of emergencies with the public. So we had everyone come to our stadium, our football stadium at the time. It was called Qualcomm, where the Chargers used to play. And no comment there or tone at all on that one. And so we turned that into an emergency center for residents to evacuate. And all of that was going on. I was buying stuff for the fire department, the police department, Homeland Security, the mayor's office now has a press conference. I was in the middle of a whirlwind of purchasing. And I'm telling you, cooperative contracts come into play, because you may not realize this, but FEMA requires that a competition is held for what you purchase outside of the immediate emergency. So when you go to FEMA later for reimbursement, they want to know where a competition was held. Well, you don't have time for a competition. You got to buy stuff. But if you buy off a co-op, the competition was already held months ago. But that checks the box for FEMA. Just an idea for your emergencies. When you're in the heat of the emergency, you're not thinking about accounting, but you need to start thinking about accounting and checking all the boxes. Many of you, I just mentioned the fiscal year, are at the end. If you haven't looked at co-ops to make those last minute purchases, in fact, put it back on your departments and say, look, you go find what you want, go find the associated supplier and bring me their cooperative contract. We can get this done in a day or two. I always loved when folks would come to my office and tell me the grant is expiring. And I would ask the question, so how long have you had this grant? Oh, we've had it 2 years, but it's expiring in 2 weeks. And if purchasing doesn't do this quickly, purchasing lost us the grant money. So again, when you have grants that are expiring, a lot of them allow cooperative purchases. They require a competition. Co-ops check that box. Now we always have things with contracts that might go wrong. You might have a supplier that just went bankrupt, ended their service, can't live up to what they promised. Or maybe with the tariffs and everything that's going on, they no longer can maintain enough of a profit margin to be able to still service your department. So in this case, they may say, hasta la vista, we're out of here. We can't do business because we're losing money, but you still need janitorial services. So here's a way to quickly pivot. Again, political initiatives are passed all the time by the politicians. And they never ask the customer departments, how is this going to impact you? How should we roll this out? They never ask us, the people who are actually doing the work, but we find out about it on the news and the newspaper. That's how I found out about my sustainability goals. My council passed them. Procurement was supposed to do it. I was never invited to the conversations. And oh, by the way, it starts today. You got to start doing it today. Budget reductions, I mentioned, it's happening fast and furious. And then obviously vendor selection. Co-ops are the way to go to the vendor or supplier of choice. You can choose them if they already have a co-op. Next slide, please. So another resource for you, it's available by NIGP. So NCPP, we partnered with NIGP, which is the nation's largest procurement organization, and they developed some global best practices. So if you're kind of new to co-ops, or maybe you've only really purchased commodities, but you really want to start exploring other services, installation, construction, that sort of thing, this best practice, it's a 13-page paper, but it will give you all the information about co-ops, along with 6 guidance principles. And the next slide, I'll kind of give you an idea of one of those guidance principles. It's about research. So here's the way I research co-ops. Take it or leave it if you want, but I'm an old broad. I've been doing this for a million years. You might want to piggyback on some of my past experience. So the 3 ways I do it. First is I will pick one co-op and I will research them to death. I want to know how they do their procurement. I want to get a sample of their RFPs. I want to know all the contracts they have out there. I am vetting that co-op because then I can set up that co-op once I feel okay and they've checked all my boxes. I will offer that to my entity and saying, look at this co-op and all their contracts. We've already vetted it. The second, maybe you want a certain supplier, let's say like Roth, but Roth has several cooperative contracts. So I would ask Bill, all right, Bill, this is what I want to purchase. You got multiple cooperative contracts. Which one's the best one for me based on what I'm buying? And so Bill would come back with some kind of analysis. Well, Tammy, maybe this one's better for higher ed. This one's great for cities and counties, or you wanted this kind of consulting. It's part of this one contract. So again, it's a conversation you can have with your supplier if they have multiple contracts. And then last, I just say it's the open-ended research. Let's say I have an issue. A lot of people were mandated with EV stations. They had to put in infrastructure. They had to put in stuff, and they were told immediately, and we have goals, and we need to do this. Well, procurement's sitting there going, I don't know. I mean, I might drive an electric car, but I'm not an expert in this field. So again, they can go out to different companies across a spectrum and say, look, we're just trying to solve a problem here and make this work. Bring us what you got, and along with your cooperative contract. So again, there's different ways to research the cooperative route, but here's what I would highly recommend for you guys in government. Get your co-ops lined up now. Do the research however you want to do, but I always do it like ice cream. I always have my favorite ice cream. It's French vanilla, by the way. But if they're out of French vanilla, I have a backup, which is my butter pecan. So you need your primary, and then maybe 1 or 2 as backups, that those are your go-to co-ops. And don't forget to constantly refresh your knowledge, because co-ops are putting out new contracts, new RFPs all the time. Whereas I think I know this co-op well, but then I just find out they have 10 brand new contracts I never even knew about. So again, it's just an idea. We're looking for you to be a leader, and being knowledgeable is being part of being a good leader. Next slide, please. So finally, before I turn it back to Bill, I did want to circle back to leadership, because it's tough to be a leader in today's times. It really is. All of the articles you read about being a good leader, and then you look over next door and you think, they're not doing it over there. Well, I'm a self-reflective person. I'm always, and I just remember my mom used to say when I was little, don't compare yourselves to others. Compare yourself to yourself. Are you the best you can be? So I'll finish with this short story. So my daughter-in-law worked for Ventura County in California, and then she later got a job with the state of California. And then her first day on the job in the state of California, she was pulled into the office by her new boss. And he said, look, you are starting your career with us today. And a lot of people toward the end of their career, about a year or 2 before retirement, start thinking about their legacy. Well, I'm telling you now, your legacy starts today. Today, every project you're related or you're part of, any conversation you have, internal or external, all your work is creating your legacy. So start thinking today, your first day on the job, what your legacy will be. So I turn that back to you. You What is your legacy going to be? And when you leave, what do you want people to say about you? Think about you, because you can work towards a legacy, but it's others who will actually define it. And don't think about it at the end of your career. Start today. If you think, you know what, I wish somebody had told me that when I was 27. Well, it doesn't matter what your age is. Start the legacy today. So, Bill, I'm going to turn it back over to you because you have a great success story. But in the meantime, for those of you who are on LinkedIn, I would ask you to follow NCPP because we post 3 to 4 times a week, free materials, different. We have a webinar next week just focused just on Canada. So please take advantage of the free resources we have available. Thanks, Bill.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tammy. And yeah, I wanted to share a little bit of a success story that we've had. We've had cooperative contracts for 8 years now. And as I mentioned earlier, Tammy, and sorry for jumping in there, but when you showed those stats, I thought I would share our numbers. But it's a huge part of our business currently. And so to tell a story, and this is a story that we've told at a number of different conferences, including with the school district. But ultimately, in the summer of 2023, the time frame for a municipal sales tax bond got accelerated from 2026 to 2024. So back to kind of Tammy's reasons for cooperatives, our customer went from a 30-month time frame to a 6-month time frame to put together a condition assessment data set for the 10th largest school district in the United States. So with 30 months, there were lots of options. There was lots of time. With that time frame being compressed down to 6 months, the game entirely changed. And so it just so happened that Dave Dolan from the school district was attending a conference that I was speaking at. He came up to me afterwards and explained, look, I have 6 months. Again, the entire scope changed overnight. And so the first question was, what can we do? The second question was, what can we do in 6 months? And from a procurement perspective, these are Dave's words. We couldn't have procured this in 6 months, let alone got it done. And so because of our Sourcewell in this particular instance, for our Canadian clients, that's Canoe. But because we had that contract, not only were we able to procure it in a very short period of time, but we also were able to co-create a scope of work that would meet the needs of the sales tax referendum and the bond initiative that would go to the public. Whereas if we were dealing with a public RFP, they would have had to essentially craft the scope by themselves and then have bidders bid on it. And honestly, it was a lot of cooperation, collaboration. Hey, what if we did this? What if we did that? That we just simply wouldn't have been able to do if we were, kind of behind the shields of public procurement. So basically, we were able to procure the work in a very short period of time. We were able to do essentially a model of the entire school district that satisfied the needs from the bond. And luckily, and happy to report that the initiative that went to the public was successful, and there was a sales tax that is going to total somewhere around $2 billion to help support the renewal of the schools within the Palm Beach County district. So I don't think that without cooperatives that the same outcome would have even been possible, let alone the successful, getting the information would have been almost impossible, let alone the successful bond passing public. So I think a lot of different drivers for why cooperative procurement is a benefit to the public sector are kind of part of that story, which again, as I said, I've had the pleasure to tell that story with representatives from the district at a number of conferences. So if you've seen me speak, you may have seen Dave and I present previously, but just a good news story all around. So thanks, Tammy, for the opportunity to share that. We're going to jump over to Q&A now. We wanted to leave time for folks to ask Tammy any questions. So we'll open it up if you want. Just please put any questions in the chat and I will read them off here. Tammy, while we're waiting, if you don't mind, if I could just ask a question to maybe get things started here. You mentioned earlier in your presentation AI, right? And the use of AI. And obviously AI is a really, really hot topic. And I'm just wondering, from your member cooperatives, how are they looking at AI, both from the contract, the RFP, their side of things, as well as the submission side of things?
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, and a lot of people are starting to research it, try it, dabble in it. I just saw an interesting report that showed all the industries and their embracement of it at this point. Of course, telecom, computer folks, they're all in. They're all, government tends to be a little bit reticent about it. And there's a couple issues. One is security. A lot of folks know that if you use the free tools that are out there, and that's what people are starting to dabble in, it's out there now. As soon as you put something in, I don't think I'd want my personal protest letter to a specific company just out for the world. So people are being cautious on the government side. But what I'm hearing from procurement people are more suppliers are using it to respond to RFPs and bids so that they can get, they don't have the people to do it. So they're letting AI help them go for the bids. But the bad thing is AI is kind of generic at times, and you always need that human element to kind of eyeball it and go, okay, that's not specific enough, or they're referencing an old study that's been debunked way back when, because remember, it's pulling from everywhere, good and bad data. And so I always feel like there still needs to be a human element, but it is starting to be used cautiously more and more.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, Tammy, that we were responding to an RFP, and there was a question: has any of the content in your submission been generated using AI? And it wasn't part of a rated. It wasn't part of a rated criteria.
Right.
It wasn't tied to anything. But there was no indication of what is the right answer either, right? So from our side of things, on the supplier side, we're trying to get a sense of where the procurement world is going. Because I mean, we have embraced AI, not to the point of robo writing our proposals,
right?
But I'm very interested to see where the procurement world goes in terms of that question, right? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? What does that mean? And how will it be perceived? So I think there's a lot of, as with everything AI, I think there's a lot of stay tuned type of situations as everybody tries to get a handle on it. So I really appreciate your insight on that.
Sure. No, that's the number one topic now. You go to any conference, doesn't matter what the industry, there's an AI session or multiple AI sessions now. A few years ago, it was always how do the generations work together? What are we going to do about the baby boomers? What are we doing with the millennials? We're now past that. We're into AI now.
Absolutely, 100%. So any other questions from our audience for Tammy?
For those from Canada in the audience, I just wanted to let you know that Canada is probably about a decade behind in the use and training of co-ops. To nobody's fault, it's because your legislation didn't allow it. But when the trade agreements were updated in 2017, it finally opened the door for Canadians to start using these co-ops, and it is fast growing in Canada. And what I'm finding is that while many of them are very comfortable with commodities, they're still learning about construction and installation and consulting. It's a little bit unknown to them. So I did want to offer up that the Ontario Buyers Association has a big conference in September. Both Bill and I will be teaching about cooperative procurement there. So if anybody's planning on attending or exhibiting there or anything like that, you can also get some more training there as well.
Absolutely. And I don't see any other questions in the chat, but one thing I would like to encourage for all the public sector groups that are online today, do not only get involved or do some research on the co-ops, but if you are interested in learning more about cooperative procurement, please lean into NCPP, become a member of NCPP. Tap into their resources, get involved in the thought leadership and the different events that are out there. We're big believers in it from the supplier side. And again, operating in both Canada and the United States, Tammy is right. Certainly adoption is a little further ahead in the US, but Canada is catching up really, really quickly. And I think that, NCPP does support both Canadian and US cooperatives as well as Canadian and US customers. So would highly encourage you to look into it and become a member so that you can be on the forefront of the knowledge, on the forefront of the studies and the information that NCPD is putting out to support not only their members, but also just the broader procurement community as a whole. So
thanks, Bill. Thank you, Bill. Thanks for the invitation to present today, too.
Tammy, I actually have a question for you, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot.
Sure.
A lot of our webinars are catered towards facility managers, asset managers, not necessarily always the procurement group side of things.
Sure.
So
Sure.
if I am a facility manager and I'm hearing about these cooperative contracts and I think that's great, what are maybe some guidance or suggestions you could make over starting or facilitating that conversation with your procurement group?
Sure, of course. And I spent 17 years of my experience in the operational side of the house. So coming into procurement, I was the department that tried to get around procurement, not deal with procurement. So I get that. I get that the rules are cumbersome and it's difficult to get what you want when you want it because they're the department that's slow and always says no. But here's what would help you with procurement. First of all, if you're already having conversations with a supplier, ask them about their existing cooperative contracts. I would also reach out to your procurement department and say, hey, do we have a list of approved co-ops? Have you guys worked on that for us? Or are there some that you are more familiar or comfortable? Tell me about your favorite ice creams here. And so work with procurement that way, because a lot of times I would have a customer department just slam down the catalog of what they wanted to buy. And it's like, whoa, help me out here. But if they had come in and said, Tammy, we've done the research. I have found they already have a cooperative contract. Let's have a conversation, have them answer all your questions, check your boxes, procurement, so we can get this bought. Work with your procurement teams. Don't avoid them and try to find out if they already have some co-ops. Another free resource that would be available to you on NCPP is the Roadmap for Cooperative Procurement. So what it is all of the questions that you should ask to conduct your own due diligence on anybody's contract. If you're piggybacking on a state contract or a cooperative contract, it gives you the list of all the questions that procurement will want the answer to. Wouldn't it be great if you came in with some of those answers already? You would quickly become one of my favorite departments because you're doing part of my work for me and helping me make this decision. So kind of help pave the road a little bit to procurement rather than, I know it's very siloed in a lot of entities, but procurement can be your best friend if you just work with them a little bit. And obviously, some of you might have your own purchasing power. You know, some of that power or thresholds is delegated. So my fleet director, he could buy up to $100,000 worth of stuff on his own without ever coming to me in procurement. So if you have a certain threshold that you can purchase under, start working within that threshold using co-ops. That would be my suggestions.
That's great advice. Thank you, Tammy.
Awesome. Well, seeing no further questions, I think we'll wrap things up. Tammy, again, personally and on behalf of Roth IAMS, thank you so much for your time.
Sure.
Always a pleasure to co-present with you, and I look forward to doing the same at the Ontario Public Buyers event in the fall. Alicia, I'll turn it back over to you to just kind of wrap things up.
Yeah, just before everybody pops off, if you wouldn't mind just taking a quick minute, you should see our feedback survey pop up momentarily. If you wouldn't mind just filling it out, it helps us to just make sure that the content we're bringing to you is of value and of use, and it helps to change how we run and facilitate these webinars moving forward. And then alternatively, there's just some contact information here. So just a quick reminder, we will be sending out a copy of the recording and the slide deck for everyone. So you will get a copy of that to the email you signed up with. But if you want to check out the Roth IAMS site, we do have tons of thought leadership content on there that is of value to really all aspects of facility management. I highly encourage you to go poke around and see what's in there for your specific department. If you want to follow us on LinkedIn, we always share what conferences we're attending, blog posts, all of those sorts of things, some client success stories. And then, of course, if you have questions specifically about this presentation, you can always reach out to Bill himself. His email and phone number is available there on the site. And we'd be happy to get back to you with any answers or help that we can provide.
And guys, for those of you who aren't sick of me yet, in 2 weeks today, I'll be doing a webinar on the Finding the Holy Grail, integrating capital planning and maintenance planning. So if for those that are in the facilities and asset management world, would love to see you back in a couple of weeks.
Wonderful.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Bye-bye.